Hoosier Nation, we are back. It's been a few weeks. Our last episode came when Trace Jackson Davis announced he was going to return to Indiana. A few weeks have passed since then. It's been generally calm and quiet in the IU basketball universe. It's been a while since that's happened. So all of us here at the Hoosier Sound took a little break, stepped away for a little bit, but now we're back and better than ever. Matt's here, and we're going to dive into all the recent off-season updates and so much more here on episode 254 of the Hoosier Sound. We're the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for IU sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. I'm your host, Nithin Krishnan. Here with me tonight is my normal co-host, Matt Lukens. Matt, how's life in Japan? Since you were last on this podcast, you went viral for recording stuff about a Kentucky restaurant in Japan. I mean, how is life now as a celebrity?
It's good. I remember all my friends when I'm at the top and getting signed and everything. No, it's great. That was a crazy funny thing that happened. Yeah, I got like 90,000 views or something like that, which is they say you have your like 5 seconds of fame. I'm hoping that my 5 seconds of fame surpasses 90,000 views for a restaurant that's dedicated to the Kentucky Wildcats.
To the rival. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, but it's still a funny video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on my Twitter. But yeah, I mean, things are good here. I can tell you that I thought that I would learn the language a lot faster than I have. Japanese is very hard. I have, however, become fluent in one thing, and that is chopsticks and pointing. Not at the same time. Don't point with your chopsticks, but I have become fluent in both. So I will let you guys know updates on that as the months go on.
Amazing. Yeah, great to hear. Yeah, it's funny to see and the NCAA's influence all over the world here. It's more global than it's ever been. Can't wait to see an IU restaurant open up in Japan there sometime soon. Matt, not calling you out specifically, not at all.
My roommates will tell you I'm not known to cook, so I don't expect that anytime soon.
Just open it up. Just open it up and then hire people. That's all you need to do. Look, Matt, we have not gotten your thoughts yet on the new and improved and rejuvenated Indiana Hoosiers now after the news where Trace Jackson Davis chose to return to Bloomington for another season. Matt, right now, Indiana's 13th in John Rothstein's top 45. They're 14th in ESPN's way too early top 25. They're 16th in CBS's most recent top 25. This is uncharted territory for this podcast, Matt. How do you think Indiana is going to deal with this top of the conference, top 20 hype here? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on IU basketball now with Trace Jackson Davis back.
One, it's exciting to have a 4-year starter, superstar, college basketball superstar, right? Come back. That's always a good thing. I would like to say about the preseason hype that it is getting dangerously close to getting out of hand, basically. It is getting way too close to getting out of hand. Don't get me wrong, I love my Hoosiers. I think they're going to do very well this year. And it's clear that they're the team in the Big Ten with the least amount of question marks. I think that's fair to say, right? But as any IU fan will tell you, preseason hype comes with a lot of, it's a burden, right?
Many grains of salt, right?
Yes. It's an on paper analysis of what is happening in the college basketball hemisphere without through like they're looking through a peephole when if you open up the door to the apartment, there could be 50,000 different things happening all at once, right? So through this tiny little lens that we have, which is last year's last couple games and returning minutes and projections. I hate that word, but projections. Indiana's looking good. But I want to take a step back and be like, Indiana still has question marks. So I don't think we deserve to be top 15. Do we deserve to be 25, 24,
Yeah.
23? Yeah, I'd be mad if you did put us in your top 25.
Yeah.
10 spots lower though, please. Please. Can you guys with the pre, because people are gonna be like, we have a slightly disappointing season, and people are like, how did this team get ranked this high? Indiana is so overrated. We don't need that. We don't need that. We're not asking for that, right? So
Yeah.
I'm just asking for the John Rothsteins of the world to take a breather on the hype. You're not going to win any like contests by putting us top 10. Okay. I think it was it Jeff Goodman? Jeff Goodman put us top 10, I
Yeah.
think.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think I saw that too.
And I was like, either your daughter, who now goes to IU,
Right. Yeah.
is in your ear talking to you too much, which shouldn't be the case as a basketball journalist, or B, you're doing this to troll us again. And I don't like either of those answers. So Jeff Goodman, cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, if there's one thing I can say though, it's that now more than ever, it's easy to jump up a lot from your previous season or drop off a lot from the previous season, just with the way the transfer portal is, so with all these NBA draft decisions are, it's really quick to make that move. My question has always been with these preseason rankings, like, are you trying to match up what it would be at the start of the season? Like, are you trying to get the preseason AP top 25 right? Are you trying to get the postseason after March Madness 2023 correct? Like, what are you trying? Yeah, it's like these things are always extremely vague and ambiguous. But of course, we just soak it all up. Matt, you were talking about questions for this team, and as far as I'm concerned, the one that we still, I don't think Indiana's really addressed this enough. It's the shooting. And we keep talking about shooting and shooting from beyond the arc, and basketball.
I'm tired of talking about shooting
now more than ever has been. It's a math problem, right? 3 is 150% more than 2, and Indiana on paper seems to be a little bit of a problem here with the 3-point shooting. I mean, where do you think it comes from? Do we rely on Miller Kopp to bounce back? Do we rely on a newcomer to light it up? I mean, where does Indiana get those shots from?
I think existing players. I see some people talking about CJ Gunn coming in. With anybody that's a freshman, it's hard to put on. It's hard to give them like a savior role. It's hard to be like, they're going to come in and fix this problem that we've had a serious problem with for a while. The more likely answer to the problem is that the solution already exists. It's just not working yet, right? It's not being put into fruition yet. So for me, it's like, I look at players like Jordan Geronimo, who shot 32% last year. If he can up his amount of playing time, amount of threes, and the percentage by a little bit, all of a sudden he becomes a very good 3-point shooter. Tamar Bates, if he could just stop chucking shots up randomly and take good shots in rhythm, which he did consistently towards the middle of the year when he was playing his best, he was a good 3-point shooter. So if he's more comfortable in the court, does he become a good 3-point shooter? The 5-star freshman and Jalen Hichafina, is he the answer? I don't think so.
I don't think
But
so either.
he can also not be a negative, right?
Right.
So you're going to find it somewhere. Can Miller Kopp be better than he was last year? Surely, right? Can Race Thompson be better? I think if multiple people on the roster have a slightly better statistical season, I think the shooting problem won't be as bad of a problem as we think it is looking on paper, seeing that our best 3-point shooter left us, right?
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, Indiana's gonna have a shooting problem. I was on Ant Wright's podcast talking about this to them, and they're like, oh, they're gonna have a shooting problem. I'm like, we had a shooting problem last year with Parker Stewart on the team playing. Okay, he was our best statistical 3-point shooter. But if you ask any IU fan if they relied on him at all, the answer was no. So we're still in search of a reliable shooter, whether we had Parker Stewart on the roster or not. And Parker Stewart was so one-dimensional that he actually hurt us, right? Because he was so one-dimensional that he had to be the shooter. The guy in that role. So I would say for IU fans, obviously it's a concern. You have every right to be concerned. I think it's interesting with the staff additions, getting Jordy Hulls in this summer, and that the players that we brought in this summer as well in this recruiting class all seem to be able to possibly shoot. That the staff in the future will fix this. However, in the short term, I think there's a lot of questions to be asked of the players that are currently on the roster to see who is going to fill that shooting need.
Yeah, I think that's a really good synopsis of that. I think it's also important, and I'm going to do something you don't hear on podcasts too much, and that is put numbers and put actual quantitative goals into the conversation here, right? Because everyone, you listen to all the podcasts out there, you listen to all the water cooler talk and the sports bar talk out there for IU basketball. Everyone knows that shooting is the problem, but you never hear like, where does Indiana have to go? So, Matt, if I asked the average IU basketball fan, what percentage from three did Indiana shoot last year? I don't think that many people could tell you. So the answer to that question is that IU shot 33%.
Yeah.
Not too bad. 33.3 if you wanted to stretch that decimal out. Okay. Yeah. 197th in the country out of 350 some odd Division I teams. That's the starting point, right? And then you ask, okay, where does it need to go? Right? I'm not asking for Indiana to turn into the NBA champs, right? The Golden State Warriors. That's not the goal here, right? Kansas, the national champs, ended up shooting 36.1% from three last year, and that was 51st in college basketball. North Carolina, who made the title game, they shot 35.8% last year, 63rd in the country. Like 36%. I think is a good goal for Indiana as they go into their preparations for the upcoming season. And if they do the things you talked about, which is, okay, Jordan Geronimo takes a couple more, hits one more. Race Thompson takes a couple more, hits one more. Trace Jackson Davis, maybe stretches that floor a little bit, knocks down the threes from his comfortable spots, maybe the corners or straight away. And then you talk about Jalen Hichafina, not someone I would expect to be a sniper from downtown, but what I think he might be able to do is facilitate the shots all over the court for his teammates, from the top starters all the way down to the final bench guys, maybe Anthony Leal when he gets his run, Caleb Banks when he gets his done, CJ Gunn when he gets his playing time. That's the kind of reasonable target I think we could put together for this IU basketball team. Am I crazy here? 36%, right? I'm not asking for the world.
I think less than that. I honestly think 35%, even 34, and this team is better. 34 is like we hit how many threes last year? I don't remember the certain amount, but it's at least like 10 or 15 more
Yeah.
to get it up a percentage. Like that's like 3, 4, 5 more wins if you hit because how close to some of those games were last year. So I'm not asking players to become Steph Curry overnight. Like that's not what we're asking you here. We're asking for a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just to be more efficient. Yes.
Yeah.
Efficient with your shots and your shot making. And honestly, it's going to hurt some people's brains. But if, let's say, I saw a report that Jordan Geronimo was working on his guard skills. So let's say in this version of reality, Geronimo plays a lot at the 3. So now you have Race, Trace, and Geronimo out on the court. Taking a bunch of 3-pointers doesn't hurt. Because if it's not Geronimo taking a 3-pointer, you have, let's say it's Trace taking a 3-pointer, right? And let's say Trace only shoots 20% from 3 this year, but he takes 50 or 63s, right? That's if he makes 20% of 50 or 60, that's
an additional 10. It's an additional 10 to
12
threes.
10 to 12.
10 to 12
but then
threes,
that's also an additional 40 offensive rebound opportunities for 2 really good rebounders and Race and Geronimo.
And
right?
Malik Renault.
And a bunch of people on this roster. So I think this roster is not gigantic, but we're going to have a rebounding advantage on a lot of teams. And so when I look at that, I go, just take 3-pointers. Like, don't take step back unnecessary ones, right? I'm not asking you to do that. Don't pull the J.R. Smith on me, but shoot, right? Just shoot the ball if you're open, because if you miss, your buddies down low have the chance to clean it up and for an offensive board. And then if teams have to focus, right, on rebounding, on boxing out, on making sure that we don't get offensive rebounds, their closeouts are going to be even slower. You're going to get even more open shots that way. So that's the way Michigan State has done it for a while. I think IU can maybe take a page out of Tom Izzo's book up there and focus on offensive rebounding this year as a strength for this team, as a way to create baskets on the offensive end when the shots aren't falling. It would be nice if they could have games where the shots are falling. But that's just hopefully something they learn over the offseason from osmosis from the new staff in Geordie Hulls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you talk about sort of incremental improvements. Last year, Indiana was 206 out of 619 from 3. If they make 10 more 3-pointers, they're at 34.9%. If they make 20 more 3-pointers, they're at 36.5%. 36.5% exceeds my expectations. And so, 20 more threes over the course of a whole season, I think that's a number here that Mike Woodson can maybe embed into his team over the next few months as they prepare for the upcoming season. Speaking of which, we're going to dive into the Big Ten opponents that Indiana was assigned earlier this week. We're going to do that in just a minute. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports. And first and foremost, on this podcast, we have to congratulate our Indiana HQ founder, Rob, who had his first child earlier this week. So shout out to Rob and Peggy. Wonderful news. They welcomed Wesley into the world. So our newest Indiana HQ contributor is there. We're going to have him soon enough going around the Big Ten footprint here to cover IU football and basketball and everything else. Unrelated, we're also going to tip our cap to CJ Gunn, IU's incoming freshman, who did win the MVP from the Indiana-Kentucky series of games over the course of the last couple of weeks. Gunn averaged 20.5 points per game in Indiana's 2 wins over the state of Kentucky. No surprise, the state of Indiana dominated that series once again, but Gunn, of course, the newcomer, deserves salute as far as his performance in that All-Star series. A friendly reminder, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at The Hoosier Sound. If you enjoy our show, leave us a review, like our content, subscribe as well, tell a friend, share our links. That kind of support really helps us grow this podcast to reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. Perhaps you have an incoming student about to begin their college journey this upcoming fall. Tell them to give us a like, give us a follow. We'll be able to guide them through here during football, basketball season, and so much more. Honestly, Matt, so many success stories right now in the world of IU sports. You talk about someone like Kyle Schwarber too, who's close to the National League lead in home runs, big time soccer performances. How about Juwan Morgan, who is part of the Boston Celtics, who made the NBA Finals? Really great to see these contributions.
You got a rebound.
All across. That's what I'm saying, man. One more. Hey, if you're on the court, you're on the court. Man in the arena, right? That's the Tom Brady show right now. So, if you're on the roster, if you're on the court, I tip my cap to you. There is no judgment here whatsoever. Juwan Morgan, part of the Eastern Conference champs, the Boston Celtics. All right, Matt, let's dive into some of these opponents here. We're not going to get too lost in the weeds as far as the breakdown, but all of you know that this ends up being kind of an underrated part of the Big Ten basketball slate every year. Because when February rolls around and when early March rolls around, you always think about those tiebreakers and you always think about the head-to-heads when it comes to Big Ten tournament seeding. And it comes to bragging rights about who's second in the conference or third in the conference. That opponent release, to me, is the most underrated part of the schedule release, which happens over the course of the offseason. But this specific news that we get, to me, is the most underrated part. According through the Big Ten, Indiana is slated to face the following schools at home only. Nebraska, Ohio State, and Wisconsin will come to Assembly Hall. Indiana will not be traveling to those three arenas. Yes, that means no road trip to Madison, to the Kohl Center. Hoosier fans can rejoice.
Already an easy schedule, in my opinion.
Indiana will face the following teams on the road only: Maryland, Minnesota, and Penn State. Three schools where Indiana has had some success recently. Indiana won at Maryland and at Minnesota this past year, and they probably tell you they should have won at Penn State. The Gophers, the Terrapins, and the Nittany Lions will not come to Assembly Hall. Everyone else, that means Illinois, Iowa, Michigan State, Northwestern, Purdue, and Rutgers, will have a home and home with the Hoosiers. So, Matt, we were talking a little bit before this show started, and we both do the research, and we both see what the expert opinions are on the Big Ten. As far as the teams that are supposed to contend at the top or near the top with the Hoosiers, Indiana will be facing all of them, home and away, except for Ohio State, who comes to Assembly Hall only. As you take in all of that information, Matt, do you think Indiana got a break here, or do you think Indiana got kind of a tough hand?
Indiana got a tough hand, but you do get a slight break, and we don't have to go play in Wisconsin, even though that's something that I wish this team had gotten the opportunity to do so, because I think they could have won there and broken that streak. That's only a streak for us. I don't think the players really think about that at all. So, but that would have been a monkey off my back, because I can't stand seeing that on the schedule.
You do notice I didn't include Wisconsin in that list of teams that I think will be contending near the top. No, maybe I'm going to regret those words in about 6 to 8 months, but I don't see it again. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll eat my words. But to me, Indiana's facing all these teams home and away, except for Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wisconsin will be better than people think, because I think Chucky Hepburn, their point guard's pretty good. But then at the same time, who else is helping Chucky Hepburn? Like, is he playing 1v5? Like,
look, they're not in Wisconsin in John Rothstein's top 45, right? If you're not even in the top 45, remember my top, like, I'm not going to take you that seriously at the start of the season. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's just the way I see it right now.
Right. So I agree with you. I don't think Wisconsin's that great. I don't think Nebraska is going to be that great, though. They're interesting, I guess. Like, it feels like anybody in the Big Ten could have a really good year. There's like maybe 3 or 4 schools that I look at, like Northwestern, Penn State. Who's the other one I'm kind
Minnesota,
of looking
maybe?
at? No, I like Minnesota, actually.
There's Maryland,
I guess Nebraska's Maryland. Maryland, Nebraska, Penn State. Like, I maybe Nebraska's a little bit above the bottom 3 there, but I think they're really bad. And then I think anybody else, if they have a good season, like I could see Dawson Garcia show up at Minnesota, and all of a sudden him and Jamison Battle look really good together, and they make a run. Like, I can see Illinois. Actually, I'll get back to Illinois. I don't like Illinois at all. I could see both the Michigan schools. They said they're at the top of the Big Ten. Actually, I'm gonna pick on Illinois here for a second. I've seen a lot of Illinois hype on the Twitter. Maybe it's because I'm on Ant Wright's feed a lot. He gets a lot of Illinois followers. I don't know how that works. But I've seen a lot of Illinois hype, and I'm just terribly confused because they love their team, which is great. Like, they got Terrence Shannon Jr. from Texas Tech. They got Matthew, was it Meyer or Mayer?
I always thought it was Mayer. I could be wrong, but
I think it's Mayer from
player,
Baylor.
Though. Yeah.
Dane Danger, who, if you don't know his name, it's probably for good reason, from Baylor. And they got
Sky Clark is the last guy, right?
Sky Clark is a 5-star freshman from Montverde, who's the backup point guard to Jalen Hichafina. And this is where my point leads off, is that they are very excited about Sky Clark coming in, which is great and all. Like, congratulations, you got a fringe 5-star recruit. But your fringe 5-star recruit was our fringe 5-star recruit's backup point guard. Like, that was his backup, right? Like, we're remembering this correctly, right? Dane Danger played at Baylor. I don't think he was injured last year. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Baylor lost their big man. They're really good. It was like
is it Flo Tomba that you're talking about?
Maybe is it Thamba? Yes, Flo Thamba. They lost their really good big man halfway through the year. So minutes opened up, and he averaged 2 minutes the rest of the season. So minutes opened up the big, and Baylor said, "Nah, we'll play 6'7" Jeremy Sochan over you, right? Instead of playing you in the big." And he's come in, and he's going to be able to match up against Trey Jackson Davis and Hunter Dickinson and Cliff Omarui. I can't say his name for the life of me, from Rutgers. Like, he's supposed to match up against him. So, like, I'm confused on Illinois.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? I see what you're saying. Yeah, and Baylor, it could have been Thamba that got hurt last year, or Jonathan Chamachachu. I can't remember.
It was Jonathan Chamachachu.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and with Illinois too, right? Not only are you adding they are adding interesting pieces, but at the same time, you are losing Kofi Coburn, you're losing Trent Frazier, and I think the key player here that we're not really talking about enough is Alfonso Plummer, who, he was always going to move on, but that's an important piece as well. Of course, Jacob Grandison, Andre Curbelo. You're asking for a pretty stress-free transition and a large one for Brad Underwood there in Illinois. But I think it's interesting. Maybe this is intentional. Maybe it's not. It felt like the Big Ten rewarded the Illini with a pretty significantly easier set of opponents than Indiana. Right? Because when I think about some of the top contenders in the Big Ten, Illinois has only got to play Michigan once, only got to play Michigan State once, only has to play Purdue once. And when I look at that, I say, oh, okay, 3 of the 6 teams, 3 of the 5 other teams, right? When we talk about it, we're looking at Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Ohio State, Illinois, and Indiana, really in that top tier. Of the 5 other teams there at the top, Illinois plays 3 of them just once. And so that to me is something that I say, oh, that's interesting. Of course, 2 of those 3 come to Champaign too. So only one of those single plays are on the road. That's down at Mackey Arena for the Illini. As far as I'm concerned for the Hoosiers, though, I'm really excited for those of you that have season tickets, whether it's through students or alumni or whatever, because if you consider this home slate with Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue, in addition to Nebraska, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Northwestern, all coming to Assembly Hall, and then you add on to it likely a quality ACC opponent, quite possibly North Carolina, who very realistically could be the number 1 team in college basketball going into the season. Those 11 home games alone, the 10 conference play, as well as the North Carolina game, your season tickets there, they'll provide a lifetime of memory. Certainly, it seems, this upcoming season. I can't wait to see how it all plays out. I do agree with you, Matt, though, that overall, this is going to be a pretty tough conference slate. I think of all the possibilities that Indiana could have been dealt, this is much closer to the really difficult part of the spectrum than the really favorable part of the spectrum. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out here this upcoming season. Of course, Indiana, from a non-conference perspective, is gradually, slowly, but surely filling out their schedule. We've talked about the True Road game in Lawrence to face the Jayhawks, the neutral site game, which again hasn't been confirmed by the school, but on good notice that it's going to be Arizona and Las Vegas. The likely scenario of North Carolina, but the conference, both the Big Ten Conference and the ACC, have not finalized that. It could be definitely somebody else. But of course, everyone, including Trace Jackson-Davis and Armando Bacot, want North Carolina to visit Assembly Hall. And then, of course, he had the potential for a Gavitt Big East opponent, which seems like it's going to be part of that slate as well. I don't think you have to really overcook your non-conference schedule. If Indiana truly wanted to fill the rest of their schedule out with cupcakes, I wouldn't be too frustrated with that. But I'm sure Mike Woodson has a thing or two. Obviously, there was rumors of him trying to schedule Louisville. That seemed to have fallen through. Of course, we'll see how things play out here over the next few months.
I like that we're going and playing people. Yeah. And I know people are gonna be like, it's a tough schedule. Like, I wish we had an easier schedule. That's great. That's great. I'm glad you want an easier schedule. But you look at it and I think to myself, I'm like, realistically, right? The best teams in March play the best teams in January and November, and they play teams that are also really good, right? Throughout the season. And everybody thought the Big Ten was great last year. And we kind of wore each other down. The Big Ten's not that good this year. So playing some really good non-conference opponents is going to be really good for a team that projects to be towards the top, if not the top of the conference in IU. So I think some people are like, oh God, we're playing so many good people. It's like, yeah, true. That might be very true. But at the same time, like, IU is pushing itself more than it has in the past, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And the reason I think they're doing that is because there's probably less pressure on the coaching staff and on the team and from the fan base than there's been in a while, right? You're not talking about a year 1 head coach. You're not talking about a coach who's on the hot seat. You're not talking about, and
which
really,
is not
Indiana. Indiana's had either a new coach or a coach on the hot seat, seemingly for the last 6 or 7 years. So when you have a little bit more freedom, you can go out and do that. I do think there is such a thing as scheduling too tough, especially when you're in the Big Ten. It could wear you down. I think Michigan may have been a victim of that last year to some degree, but you want to see your non-conference strength of schedule, I think in the 70s, the 80s, the hundreds. You don't want to see it down in 307 or wherever it was last year. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I think Michigan had a good non-conference schedule. I think they didn't expect the Big Ten to be as good as it was last year. And sure, the Big Ten's, like the Big Ten's tournament success wasn't great.
Failure. All Fs. Everyone gets Fs.
But I think that's because we all wore each other out in conference, right? Like I know it's like some people that's like a lame take, but I think it's true.
Super stretchy analogy though, because right now it's peak college baseball season. And right now I see all these really, really good SEC teams in college baseball who supposedly beat each other up in the regular season. Well, then I look up at my TV and they're like all in the 8th team field in the College World Series. So
except
to me,
for
it's like
the GOAT of college baseball, Tennessee, right?
Except the number 1 team. Right.
So
it's funny, right? It's funny how that works.
It was the same thing last year, right? The number 1 team in conference didn't do very well in March, right? It wasn't Iowa, it wasn't Purdue, it wasn't Illinois, it wasn't Wisconsin that did well. It was Michigan, right? The team that went out and played people and wasn't afraid to play people in the early part of the year. And sure, they paid for it, in the middle of the schedule. But towards the end of the schedule, they were ready to go. They knew what was happening. They played a lot of really good teams by the end of the year. And so I think this will benefit IU. Will it impact their conference? No, I don't think so. Because I think, again, like I said, last year's Big Ten was significantly better than this year's. But it's still going to obviously take a slight toll on the team. So
it's fun. It's exciting, right?
It's exciting times in the program. It's exciting times in college basketball. It's exciting times in the world in general.
That's what it all comes down to. Real quick, Matt, let's give our social media shout out. Hey, I saw that it was Jalen Hichafina's birthday over the course of the last few days. So exciting times for the incoming freshman who, of course, moved into campus here recently in the early part of the summer. That was cool to see. I also noticed, and I saw that you noticed as well, Matt, newcomer jersey numbers for football and men's basketball. How about on the football side? I thought it was a pretty cool number release video over on Indiana football's Twitter account. Omar Cooper's wearing number 3 this upcoming season. Travell Mullen's going to wear number 13 on the defensive side of the ball. And I love those big trench players. How about Hollywood Moore wearing 72 this upcoming year, as well as Bray Lynch wearing 74. I'm excited about whether any freshman can make an impact here on the offensive line, because God forbid Indiana's quarterback, whether it's Jack Tuttle or Connor Bazelak, are going to need some protection this upcoming season. On the basketball side,
protection.
A little protection up front, a little offensive line work up ahead of either of those quarterbacks. And then on the basketball side, how about Jalen Hichafina, who's going to wear number 1 for IU this year? Malik Renault in the number 5. Caleb Banks going to wear number 10. And CJ Gunn will wear number 11 for your Indiana Hoosiers. A pretty big number there. A lot of responsibility for Mr. Gunn. That number 11 is quite a history at Indiana University, and it's going to be him wearing. It's going to be Gunn wearing that number 11, and Hichafina taking over Rob Finnessy's tenure wearing that number 1 uniform. Quick shout out to all of our socials on Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound. You can follow us at Indiana HQ on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome to all of our new followers here since our last episode. And Matt, on Instagram, we're not Indiana HQ, but what are we?
Indiana.HQ.
Thank you. Exactly. And that's where you can follow us there. Someone took the other account. So Indiana.HQ is where you can find us on Instagram. Matt, as we wrap up here, super exciting times for IU sports. Men's basketball is trending in the right direction. Football season, it's 3 months, less than 3 months. So Indiana should have an easier ramping up of their schedule, starting with that home opener against Illinois, Friday night national TV. Matt, closing thoughts here as we wind up a June episode here of the Hoosier Sound.
Yeah, off season's in full swing. It's summer in Bloomington. It's summer here in Osaka. It's so hot. So hot. I, for some reason, thought Japan was just going to be nice temperatures all year round. No. It's like 90 degrees, 100% humidity. I'm sitting there on the train. I don't know how these people survive. Anyways, I just want to give nice summer vibes, everybody. So from all of our listeners, I know we haven't been doing a ton of podcasts recently. That's because, well, it's the off season.
We're adapting. Exactly.
Like it's
movement. Moving pieces.
It's 8 a.m. for me. It's right after work for Nithin. So it's
moving pieces.
Yes, it's been hard trying to find the time. So thanks for being patient with us, guys. And yes, more podcasts coming up in the future.
They're coming. You better watch out. Yeah.
More podcasts live and not just pre-recorded like this one. So all the good stuff coming from the Hoosier Sound in the future. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, right, I'm just thinking about here over the last few weeks, we've been afforded a little time to slow down because I remember when Mike Woodson got hired the first day, my immediate thought was someone hopefully can finally bring some calmness and tranquility and steadiness to this program that hasn't been there in decades. And it's only one off season, just one. But you're seeing that, right? You saw some good news with recruiting. You saw some good news with NBA draft decisions. It didn't have to be that way. You saw that Mike Woodson had backup plans in case things didn't go his way. But you see someone who has been there and he's done that at a higher level in the NBA, and he's bringing that smoothness to Indiana's men's basketball program. And that's something that just hit me the other day. I said, look, isn't it crazy? We're not talking about controversy, craziness, stupidity, this, that, whatever. I mean, college players and college programs, they'll make mistakes. And I'm sure there'll be a couple more here before the season starts. But overall, you're definitely looking at this as someone in Mike Woodson who has a steady hand right now to guide this Indiana men's basketball program. And it's encouraging to see. But folks, that about wraps it up for our 254th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.
Peace and love. Go Hoosiers.